Many non-Western cultures use regular rhythmic cycles throughout their pieces. In Arabic classical music, these are referred to as iqa'at. In Indian classical, they're called tala. And of course, there are Euclidean rhythms. These are huge topics, which could easily become their own class. I encourage you to look into the links and email me if you have questions, but unfortunately we don't really have time to get into them in detail. For now, the main idea to focus on is that repeated rhythmic patterns are of great use to composers all over the world. But they do get stale after a while. So, how do we avoid this? Let's look at the listening examples for this week: Fusion Dance, performed by Wasal, and Farha by Dafir Youssef. Fusion Dance is a great example of cyclic meters and sections. The A section alternates between 9 and 5/8 and functions as a recurring idea similar to the A section in a rondo, while the B, C, and D sections act as the rondo's digressions. The B section alternates between 7 and 8/8, while the C section alternates 11 and 3/8, and D is primarily in 3/4. This internal repetition makes it feel as if sections A through C are individual cycles. Combined together as they are in the piece, they form a larger pattern of the A section alternating with the other sections. And while they're all internally stable through repetition, the arrival at the D section and the switch to the quarter note pulse makes it feel like there's a huge shift into unstable rhythmic territory. The repetition and regularity of the patterns in sections A through C are setting up expectations for the audience. Some sort of a 3+2 pattern. When that's changed to the quarter note pulse in the D section, it's really startling. It's a great example of setting up expectations through repetition and then pulling the rug out from under your audience. Farha is listed here because it has a really interesting section starting at 54 seconds in the recording. Listen as the oud introduces a pattern. The trumpet then repeats it with the oud, but a new section is added onto it with a feeling of fours. This is then repeated with another section added on that's primarily feels like it's in 3. Then a final repetition that feels like it's in 2 before it continues on to the cadence at 1 minute and 23 seconds. Similar to Fusion Dance, there's a repeated cycle. But while Fusion Dance is contrasting the A and not A cycles, in Farha, Youssef is adding to the cycle each time it's repeated, creating an additive pattern that gets longer every time. That's pretty cool. Of course, there's one more thing to think about. When do you break the cycle? The simple answer is when it feels stale and predictable. There's something to be said for lulling your audience into a state of expectation that everything is nice and stable before pulling the rug out from underneath them, musically speaking. But if it stays that way forever, it becomes dull and predictable. The best pieces don't fall into the trap of never-ending repetition, but will change in ways that retain the audience's interest. Once you think you know how the piece will go, you're going to lose interest. So when writing, listen to what you're composing and be sure that you're not tipping the balance too far towards pure repetition. It gets repetitive.